I was going to make a video discussing potential solutions to current economic and political situations, but then I thought before discussing solutions it was useful to give a review of, or at least give my interpretation of the current reality. And I know it's an ambitious title, How the World Works. My qualifications for making a video like this are that I made a living predicting the future as a futures trader, and I was more successful at it than most people. To make a living as a futures trader predicting the future, especially as a macro fundamentals trader, you basically have to understand reality better than most people. First, you can view reality from many different angles, but I think one of the easiest perspectives to recognize is the physical perspective. And in the physical perspective, the world runs on power. So without understanding some basics of power, it's hard to understand much else. One way to view things is that there are two main types of power in the world today: energy, the physical type, and money, a social representation or a store of power. With energy, the main type is oil, and with money, the main type is fiat currency issued by central banks. It's amazing how many people are trying to understand the world today and yet have no understanding of these two basic driving forces behind everything. Without understanding the fundamentals of these two types of power, in my opinion, it's impossible to understand anything else. It's like a surgeon trying to practice medicine without understanding anatomy, or an engineer trying to design something without understanding the laws of physics. And sadly, I'd say that only a few percent of the population has a decent fundamental understanding of either of these topics, oil or money, the two driving forces behind our world today, and only a fraction of a percent really understand both topics and how they overlap. I think history is the best starting point to understand nearly any topic, and for a layperson to understand the history of oil, there's an outstanding book later made into an outstanding TV series called The Prize by Daniel Yergin. This series, which is available online, gives an excellent overview of the development of the oil industry, and it shows its vital importance to our world today. Once you learn about the basic history, you can begin to see how oil developed such vital importance today. As I said again, it's the fundamental power which runs our world. It's irreplaceable for our current state of existence. It's used in the manufacture and transportation of nearly everything. And so to understand what runs the world, it's crucial to understand the fundamentals of supply and demand for the oil market. The world's supply of oil is currently flat, while demand rises sharply due to modernization in the developing world. In fact, the availability of oil, the per capita usage in the United States and Europe, has actually been declining in recent years. That means the per capita availability of power in the United States and Europe has been declining in recent years. It's an extremely complex topic, but basically we're in a precarious balance currently, and one we haven't seen since the 1970s. On the one hand, technological advancements have been ameliorating what's actually a worldwide shortage of oil that's occurred in the last 7 or 8 years due to flattening out of the world production capacity, apparent world production capacity of oil. Much of, if not most of, what we see as economic decline in the West in the last 7 or 8 years is ultimately due to this hidden effect of the decrease in per capita availability of power or oil to Westerners. Now, a lot of this decline is offset somewhat by efficiency gains enabled by technology, so it currently appears that we'll stay somewhat ahead of the curve and gradually transition to other energy sources. And there are a couple other issues which I'll get into in a minute. But this lack of availability of power, the decline in per capita use of oil, is likely the largest unperceived trend which is driving our economic climate today. Now, things get a lot more complicated at the intersection of physical power, oil, and economic power, money. And there's a large overlap between these two. But before I get into that, let me first go over some of the fundamentals of money. You could take the perspective that money is basically a physical representation of power. Historically, but not today, money was basically energy converted into a form that could be stored and transported easily. Gold or livestock or anything else that was used as money in the past basically took energy to produce, and this was a large part of why it had value. Hopefully the money was also a very efficient store of energy, and it could be transported and didn't decay very much. And for that reason, precious metals were generally used in the past as the most efficient store of value, as the basic type of money. In the broadest terms, you could say that money is the most efficient way for a complex society to transport and trade power. Now, with all types of power, there are people who try to earn it legitimately and there are people who try to steal it. And I think historically and even today, you can see that a large percentage of the world's power is stolen. You can see this in the oil industry in some obvious and some subtle ways, but first let's deal with money. Today we no longer have a pure commodity-based currency, but a fiat currency. Fiat is a decree of force which transfers power, and in the case of fiat currency, the power is transferred from the individuals who are forced to use the currency into the currency. Fiat currencies always benefit one group at the expense of another. That's why force is necessary. And fiat currencies benefit the people who create the currency at the expense of the people who are forced to use the currency. I guess this is as good a spot as any to take a break before the next part of this series, where I'll make another video talking a lot more about money and the intersection between money and oil. And you can check out the link below in the description box to watch the online documentary The Prize by Daniel Yergin.